Okay, so we can't leave private wealth management until we talk about ethics and compliance. And again, if you haven't realized, ethics is heavily tested in the CFA exam. It's in level 1, it's in level 2, and it's in level 3. Hopefully you're getting ethics down because it's not going away. And again, ethics is extremely important, not just in wealth management, but in everything that we do. Okay, so you know as well as I do, and from the readings and in real life, portfolio managers in private wealth, you're expected to fill many ethical and compliance requirements. Sometimes it almost seems overwhelming, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. We're probably going to see more and more of these compliance requirements increasing. And just to make things clear for you, remember, you've got a great source and resources available to you to help you answer these questions as well on the exam. So we put together this summary to help you with some of the requirements, where you can find them, and they're briefly discussed here in the sections. So let's talk about ethics for a minute. So what am I going to recommend to portfolio managers and what I'm going to recommend to you to prepare for the exam? I want you to get familiar with the CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. As a level 3 charter holder, this isn't the first time you've heard that term. I know that you've read it a couple times. You need to read it again. Those are big points that you can't afford to lose on. You need every point you can, because you know this, you can pass the CFA exam by 1 point. You can also fail the CFA exam by 1 point. So every point matters, and you can't just sleep on ethics and say, I'm going to read it the night before the exam. It's not going to work. You got to incorporate it, read it multiple times, and practice. Okay, so again, code and standards are going to give you basically this tool that's going to help you resolve any ethical issues and conflicts. Now, let's talk about some of the more relevant considerations that we're going to be exposed to as candidates and as practitioners. So, fiduciary duty and suitability. So, you're going to have to put the client in appropriate products and services, and you may be held to a very high standard of this fiduciary duty. It's absolutely important to understand what are you being held to, and you need to comply with those. Okay, so where can you find information on fiduciary duty and suitability considerations? Well, again, we mentioned there in the Standards of Professional Conduct, but where? Standard 1B, independence and objectivity. Now, every year I get calls from candidates, Randy, do I need to remember that Standard 1B is independence and objectivity? Do I need to be that granular? Do I need to know them? No, you don't. They're not going to tell you Standard 1B and then you have to remember what it is. Or you don't have to identify independence and objective with Standard 1B, but you need to know what Standard 1B, independence and objectivity, means. And you're going to practice a lot of examples. So again, don't worry so much. We put the reference numbers and standard there so you can go back and look at these. Okay, we're giving you ones that are likely going to be tested. Standard 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care. Standard 3C, suitability. And then Standard 4A, diligence and a reasonable basis. Okay, so all of these that we just covered, these are areas that I would make sure that I go back and double check. Read through the code and standards. Go through and double check these. Work as many ethics problems as you can. These are all really important, and you're going to need those points. Okay, know your customer. Hey, how can you do business with the customer if you don't know your customer? Have you ever met them? Did you verify that their name is correct? Did you get the right documentation? Do you know anything about their personal and financial information? If you didn't do any of these things, you might as well just be a robo-advisor that we talk about later in this material. Where are KYC requirements covered or know your customer? They're in Standard 3C in suitability. Again, is it critical that you know they're in standard 3C suitability? No. But you need to understand the types of things that you need to know in order to determine, is this investment suitable? Okay, confidentiality. I worked for a while in a wealth management team, and we had attorneys and CPAs and relationship managers and key account managers and portfolio managers. And what's going to happen, some clients didn't want you to share information with business associates. Some did. You need to figure that out. Where is this covered in the code and standards? It's in standard 3E, preservation of confidentiality. So it's going to deal with these main considerations in client confidentiality. Okay, conflicts of interest. I promise you these come up very often in the real world, and they come up very often on the exam too. A private wealth manager may face potential conflicts of interest. So imagine if you keep telling a client to keep trading a portfolio, and then you find out you get paid by the commission. So you've got to understand how you get paid. So if you tell the client, look, every time you place a trade, I make more money, they may think a little bit differently when you keep asking them to make trades. Or maybe you just get paid a flat fee. Okay? The client needs to understand this, because how you get paid is something that the client should know, just to make sure that you're not incurring fees and costs to the client to make yourself better off. Okay, so what are some areas, where are some places that I would want to look at for conflicts of interest? I'd look at standard 1B, independence and activity, and standard 6A, so disclosures of conflicts. Again, not critical that you know what all of these standards and identify them, but you need to understand the gist of what they're saying. Okay, so for the exam, this is absolutely critical. You can't memorize everything. So guess what? Just know that regulatory requirements vary by jurisdiction. Hey, maybe in the US, it's very different than in South Africa. Does that mean I need to know all the rules in the US and South Africa? No. They'll give me what I need to know in the exam, but just know that they probably vary. Okay, so you need to be prepared to state that you must fulfill whatever those regulatory requirements are as part of your responsibility, and you're going to have to identify that you have to fulfill these regulatory requirements. Whatever they are, you're going to have to meet them. Okay, now the industry and the reading sort of breaks down segments. So what do we mean by that? Well, the mass affluent section, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to give a lot of portfolio management services, but most likely you're going to do portfolio construction, maybe risk management and retirement planning. This is the key right here. We're going to use technology. I managed mass affluent segment at one point. At one time, I had about 700 clients. Now, could I personally review 700 clients all the time? No. I needed technology in order to do this, and I needed a team to do this. So what happens? We have a larger number of clients per wealth manager and a greater use of technology. So what does that mean? It means that the portfolio is probably a model portfolio, model A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. It means that I'm not tailoring a specific portfolio for every single one of those 700 clients. Okay, I'm going to group these clients in by similar characteristics, and I'm going to find a model that's appropriate for them. So again, these portfolios tend to not be tailored for each client. Okay, the other thing about this mass affluent segment, there's two ways that you can get paid. I could base on commissions every time I place a trade. I'm likely to be linked to get paid on assets under management. So if I can get your account to get higher, I get more fees, but you have more money. And again, same thing with commissions. Mass affluent segment, they need to understand how you get paid. And again, you need to emphasize that, listen, I'm generally not tailoring this portfolio to exactly your situation, so there is going to be some overlap there. Now, in this high net worth segment, what happens, we have a smaller number of clients compared to the mass affluent. And I'm likely going to be able to tailor personalized investment services. And I'm not just giving retirement services. I'm also implementing tax planning and maybe even estate planning. I'm bringing more services to the client, and they're tailored specifically to the client, and the client has higher net worth than the mass affluent. Okay, so again, the other thing that's really critical, let's think about portfolio. What's likely to be in there? Well, we're likely to see alternative investments and estate planning. So again, if I had to know the differences between mass affluent and high net worth, mass affluent, I'm not tailoring the portfolio. High net worth, I am. And a high net worth, because they have higher assets, they're more likely to be able to handle alternative investments that have higher minimums that aren't going to result in huge concentrated positions. And it's likely I'm also going to offer more services, including estate planning. Okay, so then we have the last segment, the ultra high net worth segment. So a term that I want you to get rid of, or I should say think about, or if you'd like to get a financial tattoo, multi-generational investment. That's a mouthful. But basically what it's saying is these people are not just planning for themselves, they're planning for their grandkids and their grandkids' grandkids. These are often very complex. They involve estate planning, and they need a comprehensive range of services. So these are the family offices you think about. You know, this is where maybe the Gates Foundation or something like that, they would be listed as ultra high net worth segment. You're offering a lot of services, and there's a lot of complexities. Okay, it also may include travel planning, advice on luxury investments, arts and automobiles. I can tell you, again, going through the material, there's a lot of talk now about art. Art is becoming almost another asset class. You know, jewelry, watches, automobiles. In the ultra high net worth segment, these are things that you have to deal with. The firm that I worked with, we actually offered a yacht service where we would actually help you purchase a yacht, finance it, and even help you pick it out. So again, you're not just doing basic things, you're doing some pretty advanced things for these ultra high net worth segments. And the other thing that's important, they have low client to manager ratio. Why? Because you offer so much customization. Okay, so an ultra high net worth wealth portfolio manages the portfolio, and again, multi-generational family members. So we got to think about family governance, and we got to think about inheritance issues, and we're going to have to worry about estate planning. This becomes absolutely critical. Okay, so again, how are these markets, or I should say these advisory practices set up? Well, they're likely going to include legal, tax, investment experts, relationship managers. Like my team, a yacht manager, we had people that specialized in various investments, jewelry, art, etc. So again, this is going to be a wide-ranging team, and they're going to offer a lot of services that you're not going to see in the mass affluent section. Okay, and again, it talks about oftentimes they employ a family office. Okay, so here's a trend that is occurring, and whether it's good or bad, it really depends. But today, we're starting to see a lot of robo-advisors. So I'm really glad that the Institute brought this up in the curriculum. So what is this? This is automated wealth management advisors that are going to use technology. And these ideas of non-customized portfolios. to help a client reach their financial goals. So they're going to have online questionnaires. They're not going to have conversations. They're not going to hold your hand. They're going to give you an online questionnaire, and then you're going to get a portfolio, and they're going to most likely use mean variance optimization. So they're not factoring in all your personal constraints, and they're going to pick the best risk-adjusted portfolio that they can, determined by your questionnaire answers. Okay, the other thing that they're likely to use, exchange-traded funds or mutual funds, and they're likely to use passive investments. They're trying to keep costs down, so it's unlikely to have a whole team of active portfolio managers. These robo-advisors are using technology, and they're using passive funds. Okay, the other thing that they're doing, they're using technology to rebalance the portfolio and keep track of online performance reporting. So again, the client is getting rebalancing, they are getting a portfolio, they're just not getting, maybe nice meetings in offices. It's all happening through technology. And the reason that folks like this, it's cost. It's lower cost. It may cost you 2% of your money to work in an ultra net worth space, maybe even higher. But when you're dealing with robo-advisors, it's all about cost. So the fees are going to be very low. Okay, and this idea about scalable technology, that's what's going to enable these people to service clients with small portfolios in a cost-effective manner. These people are not high net worth investors. They tend to have smaller portfolios. I'll tell you from experience, managing a small portfolio, I think, is much harder on average than managing a big portfolio. Because this idea about concentration and having to always be aware of that becomes very difficult to deal with smaller portfolios. But because technology is improving, these robo-advisors are now starting to be used not just for small clients, but now we're seeing more sophisticated investors too. Okay, so again, these can be used in combination with private wealth managers. Maybe use a partial robo-advisor and then use a private wealth management, maybe to lower fees. So again, there's a lot of hybrids. These things are still fairly new and they're still evolving.